Hello, and welcome to this demo. We'll explore one of the most common ways to fine-tune descriptors, wildcards. Let's start from a blank process. We have already added 3 text documents to our project folder that we'll be using. In this scenario, we will create a workflow that removes double spaces in a Notepad document. After that, we'll fine-tune the descriptors to identify the application in a way that makes our workflow applicable to multiple Notepad files. Let's add a Use Application Browser activity and indicate the Notepad file. We'll also change the name of the activity to follow best practices. Here, let's change the Match Exact Title option checkbox for the purpose of this demonstration. One important note is that if we uncheck it, the workflow will work with any opened file. Also, let's set the Open property to Never, as we want to perform these actions on the open file. Let's add a keyboard shortcut activity to automate the Replace command, whose shortcut is Ctrl-H, and remove the double spaces in the text file. For the next step, the robot must fill in the fields in the Replace pop-up window. So we'll add 2 type into activities. Since we need to find all the double spaces, the string we will enter in the Find What field consists of 2 spaces, which must be placed between quotation marks. The second type into activity will ask our robot to enter a single space in the Replace With field. And now we can move on to a click activity to select the Replace All button. Let's save the workflow and run the project to see how the execution goes. Alright, it works! Double spaces have been removed from the Notepad. So far, so good. But what if we want to remove the double spaces in a different file? Let's try that out. We'll simply close this file and open a different one. And run the workflow again. The execution failed because of the different file. If we look at the error, it's pretty self-explanatory. Could not find the UI element corresponding to this selector, and it's generated by the Use Application Browser activity. Now let's examine the selector more closely and try to fix it. We can notice that the title attribute contains the name of the previous file. Here comes the use of wildcard. As we already know, a wildcard is a character or a set of characters that can be used to represent one or more characters in a string or a file path. It allows for more flexible and dynamic automation by allowing the automation program to match and manipulate multiple strings or files that share a similar pattern or naming convention. For example, the asterisk is a commonly used wildcard that can represent any sequence of characters. So if we have a list of files that are named Document 1, Document 2, Document 3, and so on, we can use the wildcard document to match all of them. Another commonly used wildcard is the question mark, which represents a single character. For example, if we have a list of files that are named report01.txt, report02.txt, report03.txt, and so on, we can use the wildcard report??.txt to match all of them. Where do you think we can use the question mark in our case? There is a chance of a single letter changing. Let's use the question mark to replace a single character in a selector. Great! Let's run the workflow again and see what happens. It ran successfully for this second file. Let's try to run the workflow for the third file. We have encountered an error again. Why is that? Let's go back to the selector editor. As we can see here, we have used the question mark wildcard, which only replaces one character, but the file we have opened does not follow the same pattern. Let's click the Repair button and select the new Notepad file. If we look at the selector now, we can see that the characters and the title were replaced by an asterisk, and we received the validation for it as well. This illustrates the use of selectors with wildcards. An asterisk replaces 0 or multiple characters, while a question mark replaces precisely one character. Let's run the project again. It is executed successfully this time. One final adjustment we can make to ensure our workflow works with any file is to replace the entire file name string with an asterisk symbol. To do this, we can open the Selector Editor menu and manually edit the attribute. Instead of clicking Repair, as we did previously, we can remove the timestamp from the attribute, effectively replacing that entire portion of the file name with an asterisk. This will allow our workflow to match and interact with any file regardless of its name or timestamp. The selector is valid, so let's click OK and run the workflow. It worked! Similarly, just as we edited the selector for a window, we can also modify the strict selector for a UI element or an anchor element using wildcards. This concludes our demo on using wildcards. The asterisk wildcard can represent any sequence of characters, while the question mark wildcard represents a single character. Thank you for watching, and happy automation!